This is video 53 on an ESPHome device for Home Assistant. We have an ESP32-based large 800 by 480 resolution touchscreen display, which would be great to display lots of text information. Hey, I know, let's display a newsfeed. In this video, we research internet-based news feeds and learn how to parse the data so that we can display the information on an ESPHome device. Please let us know in the comments if you like this example, or let us know if you have suggestions to improve it. As this channel covers multiple small system solutions over time, please subscribe to stay informed, and click like, as that really helps. Our goal for this effort is to display a newsfeed on our ESPHome device. We will demonstrate a working program. We will research free news feeds and learn how to parse the event-based data. We'll briefly discuss the device configuration for the ESPHome, and we'll walk through the various YAML files. The program files are at the GitHub site that is mentioned in the description and endnotes for this video. Let's look at the demonstration. The program is running, and the display shows news items in the left pane and a blank pane on the right. The items are news titles and buttons. Let's press a news item. As you can see, the item's full text is displayed in the right pane. We can click any other news item to see its description. Or, if we leave the screen idle for more than 60 seconds, the pane is cleared. As you will come to learn, we harvested 3 attributes from the newsfeed, which are news titles, news descriptions, and web links. If we change our view to our Home Assistant system, we find a dashboard called Lab. It shows the same 5 news items. The titles here are links instead of buttons. Clicking a title actions the web link, and we get a full page of information. Now that we saw the demonstration, let's look at the steps to get this. It turns out that Internet news was organized into RSS feeds beginning in 1999. Companies host websites that return XML formatted information. The standard was updated to RSS2 in 2009. To get data, we simply subscribe to a service. 2 businesses with free RSS feeds are the BBC News and Fox News. Going to their online documentation, we get the following websites. Continuing our research, we learn that Home Assistant has an integrated service called Feedreader. To configure, we enter one of the URLs we found. This creates an event specific to the news service that updates hourly. By the way, the services are event-based, which means that they only send information. Let's take a look at that integration package. I've brought up our Home Assistant, which is currently looking at the ESPHome. Let's go to our settings. We'll go to Devices and Services, and we'll go to Add Integration. And while you're here, you're going to want to type in Feedreader. When you do, it's going to ask you to enter in a URL. You can see there's several URLs that I've already entered. Here's the URL for the BBC News service. All I have to do is click Submit. Since I've done that already, we can take a look at how it's configured. You can see here that I've configured the Feedreader to get news information from the BBC News and from Fox World News. This creates an event specific to the news service that updates hourly. We can see the information if we go to Developer Tools. In Developer Tools, you want to go to States. And now we can scroll down and look for BBC News and the Fox World News. There are probably several ways to do this program. but I am borrowing an approach used by the Smart Home Junkie. A reference to his video is included in the endnotes. One thing he did was limit the program to 5 events, so we will do that as well. Then, the next thing we need to do is create a template sensor. We'll call it RSS Feed 1. This is similar to what we did for our work in video 49. But here, we fetch 3 attributes from the event data: a news event title, a web link, and a description. We created a card in our lab dashboard that fetches information from the template sensor. You will recall it from the second demo. However, this information needed to be filtered further for ESPHome. So we created a second template sensor called List News 1. Since the event data is only provided occasionally, we can use the Developer Tools States screen to review the content in RSS Feed 1 and the filtered data in List News 1. Let's scroll down and look at that. So this is the original information. And now we want to look for sensor for the list news and for RSS feed items. Let's look at that one first. So you can see here that we have the same information that you saw above, but now it's organized by titles, then by links, and then by descriptions. So this is the information that feeds all the rest of the system, but in particular the lab dashboard. When we look at sensor list news, we could see that we've filtered it even more. Here we've added a semicolon at the end of each news event. And we did the same for the titles, for the links, and for the descriptions. Then in ESPHome, we created text sensors to fetch and filter the data further. This step was not needed for the Home Assistant lab dashboard, but it's important because it does character handling on the ESPHome device. Also, our ESPHome device may or may not be active, so this approach ensures that the screen is updated when we desire it and avoids unnecessary filtering in Home Assistant when our ESPHome device is offline. After fetching and filtering, the data is placed in ESPHome global variables. Then the LVGL labels simply indexed into one of the globals. Let's look at our display design. As you can see, we have a button for each event. The top label holds the date time of the event, and the big label holds the description content. And it is updated by pressing a button. As you recall from the demo, each button has the text of its event title. Well, that's it for the research and design. Let's look at the hardware. We first used this device in video 43. Here is the Waveshare URL for the device information. Here is a recap of the capabilities of the device. One reason for choosing this device was to ensure we had room to display all the event data. If you are starting afresh, then please be aware that Waveshare has schematics and pinouts on their wiki website. To utilize the device, we erased the Video 43 firmware and deployed the ESPHome firmware. Fortunately, we found Clyde Barrell's post with detailed configuration information in a community Home Assistant website. His information is contained in the endnotes. The YAML file is included at our GitHub website for video 53. Please take note that all the components listed on this slide are important and must be included in your YAML. Otherwise, you can easily modify the LVGL display in a manner to your liking. The details will be reviewed in the next section. Deploying the solution involves 3 sets of changes. You need to create the dashboard. We need to update the configuration YAML with the templates.yaml text sensors. And we need to update our ESPHome device with our configuration that connects to those sensors. We began by going to the GitHub site, and here you'll see we have a script for the dashboard. It's a text file. And we have YAMLs that you can copy and insert into your system, or look at these and update your system based on your needs. All right, let's go take a look at the lab dashboard. So I created a dashboard area called Lab, and you can see I created an item of news in it. And to do that, you use the pencil. You click on the pencil to get into edit mode, and then you find one of these sections where you want to add your news, and you click the pencil. All right, except for we want to do this one. What you see here is the card information. So I like to go and expand this. And this is that text information from that file from our GitHub site that I just showed you. So just paste it in here. And when you do, you should get something that looks like this. When you're done, click Done. And now you can see the information. All right, and that's it. Now on for the next step. The next step involves going to the file editor. The file editor is an add-on that's very valuable to Home Assistant users. You can see here that I am showing the templates.yaml. Let me close that. So what you need to do is you browse on your file system by clicking this box. When you do, you'll look for configuration.yaml, click on it, and now click over here. You can see that I've added a template called weather.yaml, and I've added a template for this project called templates.yaml. All right, next, just close that. So you need to either upload, which you can do using this function, or edit if you already have a templates.yaml, your templates.yaml. And you can get this configuration from the GitHub site. Just paste it in here. You'll see that there's two sensors that you're adding, one for RSS feed items, and the other for list news. And this first one is the default way of doing things in Home Assistant. It is going to terminate each item. And the purpose of this template sensor is to take and read the trigger events from the Feedreader and parse it out into titles, links, and descriptions. And this Jinja 2 code is used to parse through the data of the event trigger and get 5 sets of the most recent news. Next, we do the same thing, but this time we've removed the carriage return line feeds and we replaced the endings with a semicolon. And this is because we found that the text sensor in the ESPHome is not able to split the lines on the carriage return line feeds. It needs a special character to look for. So we use the semicolon. All right, and that's it. You can close the file when you're done. Now we're ready for the ESPHome Builder. For ESPHome Builder, I've given some suggestions out on the GitHub site, which I'll go to now. In the README on the best way to install the software. I like to do it in stages. Let's edit it. So in this file, you'll have the configuration for the device. You'll have the information for your IP address and all your secrets. And then there's some things that are important. You must have, for an ESP32 device, you must have a web server. Here I've set it to port 80. For the timeout, we need this time function. And then here's the remaining parts of code to configure the device. Finally, we come to the font. Here you'll see that I created, added fonts using the Google Fonts Roboto. But then I found that the BBC News provided a lot of European characters. So I've expanded my font to include all the Latin 1 characters so that we don't get any errors in our logs. Next, you can see where we're doing the parsing that we talked about earlier. We have multiple text sensors. Each one brings in a piece of the information out from the template sensor that's in the configuration YAML. So, for example, our RSS titles is bringing in the titles attribute. This is then parsed with another text sensor, and it produces a new item called ARR titles. ARR titles is a global. So what we found is that putting the information, fetching the information in a text sensor, great, but then we could push this data into a global, into a list, and then we could easily index into this list using our LVGL items. So let's take a look at that. So if we come down here, you'll see that we have this on value at the end of our text sensors. And so when a value is available, it's going to take that information from the global up above and index into it and put it into a specific, in this case, label. So the label for Title 1 is from ARR titles, index 0. And you'll see the next one is index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4. In this manner, we were able to update all 5 buttons on the screen fairly easily. Okay, the next thing we did is we provided a text sensor for the label of time at the top of our screen. And all we did is go back to the list news template sensor, grab the state value, and the state value, as you recall, is the date time stamp. So it gets it, and then with some simple C++ code, we parse it out and just get the first 19 characters, which gives us a nice clean date time stamp. And we put that into label time, which appears at the top of the screen. So all this information that you're seeing is in that is in the GitHub site for that YAML ESP32 news. One final thing I'd like to point out is that for this particular project, we're going to use the grid layout. And the grid layout is very nice in that you can define the grid's columns and the grid rows. So here we have 2 columns and we have 6 rows, and we put the title of the time in the very first row, and made it a smaller row than the others. So here you can see we use the weighting factor to weight the bottom 5 rows all the same, and the top row 1/2 that size. And in this manner, we created our screen. In summary, we demonstrated the ESPHome device and the Home Assistant lab dashboard being able to receive this information. We then learned a lot about the RSS feeds and the Home Assistant Feedreader, which is Home Assistant's way of getting these news feeds into the system. We reviewed the design that's in specifics, that single screen where we used the grid layout, and we reviewed the hardware device. And finally, we reviewed the 3 configuration items. We reviewed how we configured the lab dashboard. We reviewed how we configured the template sensor and the ESPHome. And these are all going to be files. So you can copy and paste this information straight from the GitHub site into your system and begin using them immediately. But hopefully this video has helped you. Please comment if you have a different approach. I would be interested if there's a better way to do this. Thank you for listening.